Hi, everyone. Thank you. Thank you to the chairs for inviting me to give this talk. And let's see. So definitely my disclosures today will not impact my discussion. And I wish, who had the 7, you did, you put the 7-second thing? I like that. But if I keep talking, I'm sure it's about 7 seconds. So let me just go to the next one. So, you heard about balloons and you heard about ESG. There was a device out there, the Aspire device, that most of us surgeons did not like. It was basically a G-tube. I hate putting J-tubes in, and I hate G-tubes slightly less than I hate J-tubes. But the idea of putting one in and then having people empty what they eat was sort of, none of us really embraced it, but there was a lot of enthusiasm with the GI guys. And I think that's because they've never really taken care of G-tubes like we do, right? So, but what happened with the company had great data. And unfortunately, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on your perspective, the evidence was there that it did work. It really helped a lot of people maintain the weight off. There were some issues because it's, in essence, a G-tube, so that when it's in there for more than a year, and they had 4-year data, you had to replace the tubing, et cetera. So there were some re-operations or endoscopic for that. But unfortunately, the company is out now, basically between COVID and just the supply and really the demand, they stepped out. But this was originally approved for even BMI of over 40. Fractal is out there, and it's really designed more for type 2 diabetes. But it is basically, the slides are showing you how there are abnormal mucosa in the upper GI tract of diabetes patients and also abnormal enteroendocrine cells. And so what the device does, and many of you may be familiar, you look at the duodenum, you insert a balloon that inflates and has heated liquid, right, that goes through, and it basically burns the mucosa, and it does it throughout the duodenum, and you can see what it looks like in the other picture of the ablated duodenum. And then they did studies to show that these, they had full mucosal healing after this, very low number of complications from the procedure. And it started, Fractal, the company's already started its FDA pivotal study for an indication for type 2 diabetes. It brought down hemoglobin A1C from the 7 range to the 6 range, so it's very effective. And then in addition, because of that data, they were able to, they had an FDA approval for trying to downgrade patients who have type 2 diabetes that were on insulin to taking a GLP-1 analog. And that's important just because the price of insulin can go up, and a lot of patients don't take their insulin for a variety of reasons, and the worst reason is, of course, that they can't afford it. So another one that's unfortunately not being marketed is a transpyloric shuttle. It actually got FDA approval, but there were a fair number of complications that occurred in terms of side effects, and also there was some issues in a couple of patients with retrieval of the device, but it basically toggled across the pylorus so that you would have fullness, and then you'd still empty as it toggled back. But again, it's not being marketed right now. The data on that was really great. It was like over 50% excess weight loss. I thought, yay, I'd like to do this instead of the balloon, which we can discuss later. I know. Anyway, so then there are the endoliners, the endobarrier and the Valentix. The endobarrier is one that connects at the pylorus, and the Valentix was one that was started at the esophagus and then went through. And it was the idea to create endoscopic gastric bypass. And so what you can see with the study, this is one for the endobarrier. I don't have one on Valentix, which also is not coming to market. Both of these did have some problems with anchoring, their anchoring mechanisms, which they fixed for the endobarrier. And the idea here is that it's going to be like a bypass and simulate some of the issues, physiologic effects, the beneficial effects of bypass, and basically it would be excluding the duodenum, proximal jejunum, and then getting the distal small intestine to see the undigested food. So another thing that's making a comeback, maybe, is the pose. So this is basically plication, endoscopic plication of the stomach. And when they did their pivotal study for the FDA, unfortunately, they did not make the 5% total body weight loss mark, which is what the FDA is looking for with meds. Now, if you come really super close, they may, approve it. Like, I want to say Belviq was approved at 4.8 and then taken off the market for other reasons. But so with this one, it did not get FDA approval, but there is now a new multi-center study that is underway, and they are seeking approval, and I think it's Chris Thompson that's involved. And this is the pose procedure. The device are like these two little anchors that are there, and they are metal. So if you are going in to do a sleeve or anything, you have to do an endoscopy. When I've done a couple of these, I do on-table endoscopy to make sure that I'm not incorporating that, because that will be an automatic stapler misfire for you, because it's actually more than the overstitch device, those anchors. Also, I do an endoscopy if I'm operating on someone who's had an ESG as well. And the idea here, the original Fogel procedure was described, and he did it all with a prior device that was sutures, and he just created like a VBG by creating a line of sutures down, which you see in that first panel on the bottom. And then they had a couple other versions, and then the pose, what seemed to work well was to do just the fundic area and decrease the size there. So it'll be interesting to see what pattern they use for this next multi-center study. It's pretty fast procedure. Patients liked it. You can occasionally get bleeding and issue and perforation because of the way you have to grab the tissue, and you can actually go through the wall, but it is a full thickness pication. Now, this is a device that's not marketed, but Dr. Randall Baker is a bariatric surgeon who designed this device, and we were still talking about it even a couple of years ago. There was a study, basically it's a partially covered stent. There was a study that showed pretty good excess weight loss at 6 months, but it did not get FDA approval, and I don't know even if he went for a pivotal study for that, and it's currently not on the market. What is having some traction right now is the magnetic anastomoses. So there's GI Windows, which is Chris Thompson is involved in that company, and then there's GT Metabolics, which Michel Gagne is involved. And both of the procedures are now done laparoendoscopic. So originally with GI Windows, and the only person I think who could do this was Chris Thompson, Barham Abudaya, like all the really guys that are into advanced endoscopy and really committed to endobariatrics. But the original way to do it was to go through do a colonoscopy and an endoscopy at the same time, and then get the ileum to mate with the jejunum. That's what their plan was. And like I said, I can't do that. But so what happened is in the GI Windows study, they started having surgeons put the lower one in the ileum, and then from above they came from the jejunum. So they are both considered laparoendoscopic procedures, and the idea behind it, and so this is a GI Windows one, it's a self-assembling magnet, and you mate the two of them, and over time, so you can see, is there a laser? Yes. Nope, I clicked, okay, hold on, I've got to go back, sorry. This one, yeah. So what happens here is they mate, and then the food and everything is going in both directions, but the magnets cause basically pressure necrosis, and they create a new anastomosis, and then you poop out the magnets. Great, it's good. So what can we do with that though, right? If you have a sleeve patient with weight regain, what we can do? We can go in and do a duodenal ileostomy, we can do a gastroileal anastomosis or gastrojejunectomy. You can use the magnets for palliation. You can, you just bring up, and then you don't really have to worry about leaks. There were no leaks in the study. Currently, both of these companies have patients that are undergoing these procedures, not in the U.S., outside the U.S. I think, though, Chris may have had one in this, done some in the U.S., but Michelle's doing them outside the country right now. And then, if you wanted to do like an enteroenterostomy, if you had somebody who had really bad malnutrition and you just wanted to do like a brawn above their distal so you can get the common channel, the alimentary limb and the BP limb to meet much earlier. You could also do that. So those are some of the possibilities. So there was a couple of papers talking about bipartition, and I want to just mention this. So basically, you have food going in two different ways, right? And there's great data on this, so that you don't have to go in a sleeve. What's the sleeve revision that we're doing for weight loss? I don't think sleeve to bypass is a great idea if patients have weight regain, so I go to a sleeve to a SOD-S, and people are always worried about the duodenum. Well, this bipartition, you don't have to dissect the duodenum at all. You can just go and do a jejunal-ileal anastomosis, and there is some good data around that shows weight loss from that, and you save the patient, any risk of duodenal stump leak, which is low, but it's still there. And so this study looked at midterm results, which was 3 years, and they saw a significant amount of remission, over 80% of type 2 diabetes. This was done for diabetic patients, but you can see that there was also significant amount of weight loss from a BMI of 44 to just under 30 with bipartition. So this is something that I think we'll see, and I think it is going to make a difference, and definitely the magnetic anastomoses can help us achieve that. This is already mentioned by, thanks a lot, Carlos, but this is the sleeve balloon that Manuel Galvao Neto is a dear friend, and he's also the one helping the company, and the company is Chiron, but there's no real data yet. But it does combine, as he said, the balloon and the endoliner. So I do a lot of weight loss meds in my practice, and when I was doing the balloon, I would add Qsymia to try and help the patients, and it helped them to maximize their weight loss with the balloon. But I'm also a big fan of GLP-1 receptor agonists, and there was a good paper out there looking at ESG with GLP-1, and that had increased total body or excess weight loss than ESG alone. So these are all options. So I would say, continue to watch the endobariatric space. It's always been our holy grail to try and do minimally invasive surgery, outpatient procedures, even though the insurance companies are all pushing us to do outpatient sleeves. We can treat obesity, as Carlos said. That's the group that we're not really fully addressing, and we can get people to, it's almost preventative, because if we treat them when they have obesity, hopefully we're not going to get them to severe obesity where they need an operation. And I think it's going to be interesting to watch the endobarrier study that Dr. Thompson's doing, because it has a lot of impact for diabetes as well. And then, like I said, with the magnets, we can do a sleeve to sleeve with a duodenal ileostomy as a revision, and it will be, and again, those are done laparoendoscopically, so that would be a good option. And I think also the GLP-1 agonists are really great with any one of the endobarries that I discussed, except the mechanism of GLP-1 agonists is that it causes gastroparesis. So I'm not a big fan of adding it to a balloon, and we can talk about that in the discussion. But I think for other indications, it's actually amazing. And Carlos mentioned liraglutide, but the real player right now is semaglutide, which is known as Ozempic for diabetes, or Wegovy for weight loss. And, I was talking to Shirin Taufeig, and she was just saying everybody in LA is on Wegovy, right? So that they're not even coming in for these procedures because they're taking the medication and then seeing a great effect. Okay, that's what I have. Thank you.